What's going on, friends and family and associated friends of Facebook? As a lot of you know, I am leaving on Tuesday, September 23rd, for my new home for the next 42 months in federal prison. It's Coleman Federal Prison, which is in Ocala. You can look me up if you want on the prison website, which is just bop.gov. That stands for Bureau of Prisons.gov. There's an inmate search. Look up my name, Daniel Wise, and you can find out information about how to contact me, how to email me. You want to send me some money. But I wanted to kind of use this time to explain to everybody, because rumors get started and passed around, to what is really going on and you know why I'm going. I'm not sure if I just messed that up. Okay. So, as a lot of you know, I got in trouble back in 2011. I worked at a pain clinic in Savannah, Georgia. So, any of you that know anything about pain clinics right away jumps to your mind. Oh, that's the places where patient comes in there with a pain addiction to a narcotic, gives the doctor some money, the doctor in turn gives them a prescription without any real need for the prescription. Which, if that were the case, then yeah, you're just in there pushing drugs on people under the disguise of a doctor's office. So let me read here, and I'll attach these links to Facebook here so you can see these. Let's see here. February 27th, 2013. A federal indictment unsealed today in federal court has charged six defendants with conspiracy to traffic oxycodone, hydrocodone, and other drugs through a perpetrated pain clinic known as East Health Center, which is operated in Garden City, Georgia from February through May of 2011. The indictment alleges that during this time that East Health Center was open, members of the conspiracy prescribed and caused to be prescribed more than 4 million milligrams of oxycodone without any legitimate medical purpose. During this same time period, prescriptions were written for numerous patients who lived outside the state of Georgia, including over 130 from Kentucky, over 50 from North Carolina, and over 30 from South Carolina, and over 80 from Florida. Now, just discuss that for a moment. They said that we prescribed, or not we, the doctor prescribed medication for no legitimate medical purpose. You know, I'm not a doctor, so I can't 100% say was there a legitimate need for it, but when you have patients that bring in MRIs and previous prescriptions from other doctors they've seen, the doctor reviews these MRIs and finds out what's wrong with you, and he sees that there's issues wrong, whether your neck was messed up, your back was messed up. Most of the patients were in some time of their life in a serious car accident or some kind of an injury. So these patients had on their MRIs what they felt was a legitimate need for to be prescribed pain medication. They had been being prescribed pain medication for some of these patients the last few years, not necessarily from this doctor, but from other doctors in different areas. When they come in and give us their MRI, one of the biggest fears that we were told to look out for is because obviously, even though you might be in a lot of pain, the pills that the patients were being prescribed are addictive. So now you've got pain and you're getting addicted to a prescription. So one of the fears are maybe these patients aren't really in pain and they're doing things to make up MRIs, photoshopping, changing the name, changing the date of the MRI, things like that. So when the client would come in and give us an MRI, they would have to sign a patient consent form, which we would then send out to the place that actually ordered the MRI and did the MRI. We would have them send a copy of the MRI over just to make sure that it matches with what the client just handed us at the office. And there were cases where, things were changed, it wasn't in their name. The MRI clinic would say, hey, that patient also went to another clinic, yesterday and asked for the same thing. We would call that clinic, find out they were prescribed pain medication yesterday. When we would see things like that happen, we immediately would discharge them, put them on a list. They would not see the doctor and they would not get their prescriptions that they were there for. They'd be pretty upset because, as it clearly says in the indictment, that some of these people drove very far to see the doctor from Kentucky, wherever, Ohio, North Carolina, wherever they drove from. Now, I know they're stating that in there as one of the reasons why we got indicted, but if you look, there is no law prohibiting us from taking patients from out of state or anywhere else. You could fly from another country. As long as you had a legitimate reason to see the doctor, he's not going to turn you away because you came from somewhere else. You know, that's wasn't our job to dictate where people could come from. So they kind of use that in verbiage to make it sound like we were breaking a law by seeing people out of state, when in Georgia there was no law. You could come from anywhere, so that we weren't breaking any laws. If they don't want you seeing patients out of state, they should make that a state law where pain clinics that open up can't see patients out of state. That simply would have stopped that. Then we would be breaking a law if we continued to do that, which we were not. Also said that the doctor prescribed more than 4 million milligrams of oxycodone without any legitimate, during this time period. There are several patients that the doctor saw that he, even once we deemed that their MRI was valid and it came from the place, the doctor would see the patient, review their MRI, and clearly stated there wasn't really anything that wrong with you that deems the prescription you're requesting, Mr. Patient. So the doctor would end up giving them a prescription for like Motrin or ibuprofen or heart medicine or a prescription for physical therapy. None of that was mentioned. It only talks about the clients that got the prescription. Those of you that know anything about pain clinics or pill mills, in the sense of, you know, the ones that were in Florida where you go in, give a doctor some money, gives you a prescription. I think that's what they assumed was going on, and that's the way they labeled this entire thing from day one. And it was very, very scary. I mean, you're talking about fear. You have 30, 40 DEA, U.S. Marshals, narcotics division, all busting in your house at the same time, screaming, you know, give us the guns, give us the money. And there was no guns, no money. When they came to the pain clinic, they made us open the safe. And I think there was, I don't remember exactly, $300, maybe $500 in the safe. We weren't making millions of dollars. We were seeing an average of, on a busy day, maybe 10 to 15 patients. Maybe there was a day where we saw 20, but on the average day, probably 8 to 10, 12 patients, where the pain clinics that they're referring to, that they're putting us up against, the Florida pain clinics mostly, you know, some of these pain clinics were seeing 200 patients a day. It was just a giant line out the door, burn them and turn them. The doctor, we had two doctors, Dr. Asmat and Dr. Gossett. Dr. Asmat decided to take this to trial and lost in trial, was sentenced to 11 years and 1 month. Dr. Gossett decided to take a plea. He was sentenced to 42 months. Now, a lot of you are like, why would you take a plea? I took a plea. If I would have been found guilty, and it tells you down in here, let's see, I'll read it to you. Any defendant found guilty of the drug conspiracy charge in the indictment faces a maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment and a fine of $1 million. Fuck. The money laundering count, which we were also charged with money laundering, and I'm not sure how that even happened, the money laundering count also charged carries an additional maximum penalty of 20 years in prison and a $500,000 penalty, including $365,000 of alleged proceeds of the defendant's drug operation. So they're saying the entire time we were open, we made $365,000. Is that a lot for a company? I guess it's decent, but we were in business to make money just like any other company. And we did it under the coordinates of the law. We opened up an office, we got business licenses. They applied for what's called a pedigree license. So at some point they could dispense narcotics out of the office, which never got that far. We never actually had any in-house dispensary. We never gave the patient any actual pain medication. The doctor only wrote them prescriptions, where at that point the patient would need to go to a pharmacy and get it filled on his own. So we had nothing to do with filling of the prescriptions. So now you're looking at all of these penalties and charges, and you're being scared with, hey, I'm looking at 20 years for this charge. I'm looking at 20 years for this charge. You know, I'm 35 years old. That would pretty much ruin my life. Now, I was offered a plea back in 2012 before the indictment came out. And the indictment came out in, what did I say at the beginning of this? The indictment came out February 27, 2013. So a year prior to this, before they indicted us, before they really released the evidence against us, they came to me and offered me a pre-indictment plea. Part of my plea, I had to testify in front of a grand jury, and the plea was a maximum of 60 months. That's the most time I could have gotten. 60 months max, 0 to 60. So depending on the mood of the judge, he could say, give you probation, Dan, or I'm going to give you 60 months. Could not give me more than that if I accepted the plea. At that point, there was only, I believe, one person that took a plea. I considered a good friend. I still do in some senses, and I'm sure he holds me responsible because I got him the job here. But a kid named Konstantinos, he took a plea. immediately out the gate. And I think his plea was misprison of a felony. And if you don't know what that means, from my understanding reading online, misprison of a felony just means you knew something was going on and you failed to tell anybody about it. So because of that, Constantine was sentenced to 15 months. Now, not when he took the plea, because he hadn't gone to sentencing yet. That's just he knew the max he could get, I think, was 15 months. So now I'm offered a pre-indictment plea a year before they indict. I decide not to take it because I didn't want to do any time, and they hadn't indicted anybody yet. And I thought maybe they would realize they don't have that strong of a case because we weren't doing the things that these other pain clinics in Florida and other places were doing. So I decided to go the route of, if it goes to trial, I'll go to trial. If it dies out, it dies out. So everybody kind of had that same mentality up until they told us when the trial date was going to be. And I think the trial was this year, 2014. I think it was January or February is when the actual trial took place. About a month before the trial took place, people just started getting, fearful. Everybody was looking at 20, 30, 40 years possibly, and they were all getting offered pleas of a maximum of 60 months, a maximum of 24 months. That's the most time they could do if they took the plea. So when it really comes down to it and you say, do I want to really throw the dice even though I don't think I deserve to go to prison, roll the dice and go spend possibly 25 years in jail or 10 years in jail, whatever they're going to give you, or take the risk of, or take the not risk of knowing the most time they can give me is this, so you kind of can base on what you're going to do. And you realize, even if they gave me the full 60 months, I can still have a life after that at some point. So everybody started taking pleas. I got a call from my attorney, and he basically told me a lot of the key targets of this case are taking pleas. And part of their plea is if you take a plea, anybody that does not take a plea, you were to testify against them. So everybody took a plea. The only people at this point who had not taken a plea was myself and Dr. Asmat. And after weighing out my options and really looking at it, Southern District of Georgia, good old boy state, you're probably going to be dealing with, obviously the members of the jury have never been in any kind of trouble in their life. They couldn't have been, or they wouldn't be on the jury. So you're leaving your decisioning up to 12 or 13 people, whatever it was, to decide the fate of are you guilty or are you not guilty. The United States government had a strong verbal case because it was a lot of leading. There was no facts, like it wasn't illegal to see patients out of state. They said we were giving patients illegitimate prescriptions, but they didn't really have to prove that. They just had to get the jury to believe it. And pain clinics and pill mills have such a bad reputation, especially in Georgia, where probably the idea of marijuana is Satan's drug. It wasn't going to be hard to convict. So I decided to take a plea, and they really weren't sure they still wanted to offer it to me because I had turned it down. I had to go down there and convince them, look, I don't want to go to prison for 25 years or potentially go to prison for 25 years. I want to have a life when I get out. So what do I got to do? What do I got to sign? I signed a plea stating I knew what I did was wrong. I signed a plea stating that I knew we were running an illegitimate premises. I never had to say what was illegitimate about it because that never really came up. I think it would have been really hard for them to pick it apart on what we actually did that was breaking the law, because there wasn't anything that was really done that I've seen that was actually breaking a law. So I took a plea. I didn't know what I was going to get at that point. I just knew the most they could give me was 60 months. I went, what are we in? We're in September, June, July, August. Yeah. The end of August, I went down and got my sentence. I was sentenced to 42 months, where I could have been sentenced to 60 months. The judge gave me 42. He has ordered me to, because of my involvement working at a pain clinic, he's ordered me to do a drug evaluation when I go in there, which is good because there's a program in there called RDAP. And if I qualify for the RDAP program, which I have gone through the motions on trying to build a case to give me that when I'm in there, if I successfully complete the RDAP program, which is 9 months, it will knock a year off of my sentence, and then I'll do 6 months in a work release type of an environment. So at the end of the day, I might spend, possibly I could spend only 17 to 18 months out of the 42, which I know that sounds crazy to all of you that are out there right now. And don't get me wrong, I understand everybody there right now that can't truly relate to this, that's only relating to the shock value, is saying right now, I wouldn't have taken a plea. I would have fought this thing. If I didn't do anything, I wouldn't have taken the plea. And I get it. It's easy to say that, and I would have said the same thing. But when it comes down to it, when you've got a moment's notice to say, take this or take this, this you're going to only do maybe the worst case scenario of 5 years. This you could do 20 to 40 years because there's multiple indictments. At the end, you'd be crazy, unless you knew for sure there was no chance you were going to lose. But you're not, it's not so much based on facts, it's based on argument. Who's going to argue better? Do you have $1 million to hire an attorney? Hell no. I struggled, borrowed money from an old boss, came up with $13,000 to give an attorney in Georgia, which is what I could afford. He did a good job for what I could afford. The average attorney for a case like this would have cost him a minimum of $500,000 to $1 million at the end of the day. I didn't have it. Neither did most of the people, so we all got stuck with what we could afford. I'm not happy about it. You know, it's been going on since 2011, and honestly, right now, I've got some things I got to do in my house. So I got to pack up some stuff, get the animals squared away, which is mostly done now. But I am not looking forward to going to prison. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to making the next step to getting this behind me. I'm almost excited about just going in there and a little bit of relaxation. You know, I'm going to a minimum security federal prison in Ocala. It's called Coleman. It's not going to be the end of the world. You know, I don't really think there's a giant presence of prison gangs or a lot of fights going on in there. Most of these people in there are in there for, you know, white collar type crimes. Because you're in minimum security, you're given a different level of privilege, and if you abuse that level of privilege, they put you somewhere else where you can act out and be under watch 24/7. So I was supposed to turn myself in September 3rd, but I had a surgery done on my arm, as you can see, this nice scar here where I ripped my bicep off of my tendon. Because of the surgery, it postponed my release date to make sure I had some time to recover and heal and see my doctor to September 23rd. So that's my story, guys. Now, as far as Facebook's concerned, a good friend of mine, and many of you know him on Facebook, the amazing magician Matt Lavore, I'm going to give him my login credentials to Facebook so he can update you guys as to what's going on. I do have use of email in federal prisons through a system called Core Links. So I will be able to email Matt on a daily basis. So I can email post, I can let you guys know what's going on in there. If you guys have any questions or wondering what it's like, or you've always wanted to ask somebody questions that's sitting in, I mean, granted, I'm not going to be in some crazy hardcore maximum security federal prison where, you know, I'm going to be butt raped every day. That's probably not going to happen. It's more going to be like adult camp with cops around. But if you do want some insight as to what goes on in the day-to-day, what the food's like, you know, what the quarters are like, just anything, feel free. Post a comment on Facebook or YouTube. I think this will be on YouTube. And Matt will gladly email me the question, and I will respond. Usually within a day or two, you'll have your answer. And I kind of look forward to it because when I get out, this will be a nice timeline built out showing exactly what took place from the day that I went in to the day that I got out. And, you know, really the hardest thing is, you know, saying goodbye to friends and family. My children, I feel like they do understand. You know, I know that they're looking at this going, I don't understand how you can be going to prison if you didn't really do anything that's wrong, because that's not the way we're brought up in society, that if you do something wrong, you go to prison. If you didn't do anything wrong, then, you know, the law prevails, and it shows that in the end. And that's not always the case. You know, I'm not going to say every time somebody goes to prison, they didn't do it. I've done plenty of stupid things in my past, so maybe this is one of those things that's caught up to me now, and I'm getting in trouble for this, and really, you know, who knows, I should have got in trouble for something a long time ago. So I'm not going to bitch and complain, but I am going to miss my children. I will email them and talk to them on the phone. My animals, you know, I have a little blind dog, Kiki, who gets a lot of attention from me. She's in bed with me every night, and she's old. She's 13 years old, so she's got a bad bladder. She pees in bed sometimes, and, you know, I put up with it. I don't yell at her. I don't spank her because she doesn't mean to. So I'm hoping that she gets taken care of the way she needs to while I'm gone. I feel like I found somebody that's really, really interested in helping out with her, and they went out of their way to make me feel comfortable. So I'm putting a lot of faith that she'll be okay while I'm in there. Other than that, I just want everybody to know what the real reason is, because I don't want rumors getting started about why is Dan in prison. You know, as soon as you hear pain clinic, you freak out. I will post the website on here. You'll see the indictment, you'll see the sentencing hearing. All of that stuff is there. Any support, even if you're against this and you think I'm an idiot and I deserve to go to prison, post your comments on there too. I'd like to hear from the people out there that think I deserve this. I'm not looking to delete any post or any comments. I really want to see what people think. Most of you on Facebook, I'm personal friends with a lot of you. Those that don't know me, this might be a chance for you to get to know me a little bit better. But for my friends and family, my kids, Matt, Amanda, Teresa, Caitlin, Lauren, Shelly, Tammy. If I didn't mention your name, it's because I'm not really planning to right now, but I love you guys. And today is Saturday. I'm having a party tonight. My friend is throwing a going away party for me in Lake Worth. It's a house party. I'm sure if if you want to shoot me a text, 561-908-3404, I'll give you the address, and you're more than welcome to show up and say goodbye. I am going to be an idiot when I turn myself in. When I surrender, I'm actually going to the party store when I leave here to buy a prison costume, the black and white with the little hat you wear on. I'm going to wear that in when I turn myself in, hoping the guards get a kick out of it and I kind of stand out in their views a little bit. So this video is already 21 minutes. I'll be surprised if anybody watches it from start to finish. But again, I do love you all, and I will see you hopefully again in the next 16, 17 months. And I'll be posting on here between now and then. Please post your comments. Let me know if you have any questions. I will gladly answer them, and it will give me something to look forward to. It's like a little social experiment, unless the Fed shut it down somehow. Ed, my brother, Ed Hill, lives in Honduras. I am coming to see you when I get out. I need a break from the United States. I can't wait to come out there and just relax a little bit. It looks like you're having a blast. So hopefully you watch this. I know we aren't very close in person, but I've definitely feel like I have a bond to your spirit as the kind of person you are, and being able to just up and move to another country the way you did. That's amazing, and I've always wanted to do things like that, and I feel it in my blood. And going there, I'll have somebody I know that can show me around, and I hope I get to see you there. So even though we don't talk that much, I do love you. Hopefully I get to see you soon. Take care. Thank you, everybody.